Great pleasure right now to have joining me today a man who has really put Sarasota on the map with ballet. He was the artistic director for 13 years, and he's just as busy as ever. We're joined now by Robert DeWarren today. Robert, good to talk to you. How have you been?
Thanks very much. I've been very well. I've been so busy since I started another project, the Carreño Dance Festival, so it's like old times pretty well.
Yeah, no, you were out of town way up in New York recently, weren't you, for part of that project?
Yes, that's right. We had auditions in New York for the summer intensive that Carreño is doing here in August of this year. And so we were auditioning young dancers, and then we were auditioning in Orlando last weekend, and we've been in San Francisco and in Texas, so it's getting us around the country spreading the word.
Well, when you came down here, I was living in Sarasota at the time when you came in, and this was just kind of reading your background a little bit. It was kind of almost accidental that you you became the artistic director of the Sarasota Ballet, wasn't it?
It was, yes. I was visiting a friend, and then one thing led to the other. They introduced me to the founder of the ballet, and then they asked me if I could advise them on the candidates that they had. And so in the end, they said, "We don't want any of them, we want you." And so it was that's how it began. And
well,
now we've been living here for 16 years, you know.
Well, it really put Sarasota on the consciousness of the ballet, not only fans down here, but around the country, around the world. I don't know if there was a program before that. I know there were some ballet schools, but that really made this town even better culturally from that work. How was that project for you? Did you enjoy that?
Yes, I did. It was very exciting. I mean, I'd been working, at La Scala in Milan, the
right.
big opera house there, and this was very different. A small city, sophisticated, wonderful climate and beaches and all of that. So that's terrific, But then also the challenge of bringing a beginning organization and helping it grow and develop and have success. And that's what I really enjoy. I'm really more of a pioneer. When I'm doing that, I'm always excited. Once it's all done, and it takes, 10 years to do that, if you're establishing a really good organization and getting the community to accept it and all of that, then I like new challenges again. So, it's been interesting because I haven't had all those many different jobs, but I've done quite a lot of work through my life.
Yeah, just do a little bio of you now. You were born in Uruguay, which is not a place you'd think ballet would come from, but you were born down there. How did that happen? I know your parents were British and Italian, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, and we lived in Montevideo at that time when I was born. Well, in fact, we lived in Argentina, but my mother, every time she expected a child, would go over to her parents in Montevideo in Uruguay because she thought if it's a boy, they don't have military service, and he won't be having to do that when he's old enough, So I was spared the military service at any rate.
Now, you were only, I guess, maybe in 5th or 6th grade when you started to work in dance, right?
Yes, I was 16, and I was studying music and that. I hadn't actually done much dance, well, no dance at all. Mm-hmm. And I was studying the violin. My great-grandfather, who was Italian, I inherited one of his violins. He was a very well-known composer, concert master and conductor and that. And my mother didn't like the sound of the violin, so she pushed me, to do something else. So my sister was doing the ballet, and that's how I ended up in the ballet.
So that was how you got into it at that point.
Yes.
Was it an instant love for it, Robert, or like most boys, I guess it probably takes a little while to to say, okay, I'll try it.
Yes, but I was very musical, and so I think that wasn't so difficult for me because it was with music, and that's what I enjoyed, moving with the scores. And I think that's really what it was all about. I was never, one of those sort of Latin American macho types doing the soccer and all of that.
Right.
I was much more into music and art and things, so it wasn't too much of a surprise to me at any rate.
What was your first professional job in dance?
Well, at one point I went to England. I had scholarships and that, and I went to England and I started performing in recitals and then on BBC television and that while I was studying at Royal Ballet. And I think that must have been about, a long time ago, 50.
You don't hard to say how long.
Yeah, yeah. It just shows my age, doesn't it?
Now,
There you are. No, not many people can boast a career which is over 60 years old, you know.
well, Dan, the dancers I've talked to, I've had a chance to talk to some Mitzi Gaynor not too long ago, and some of the show business dancers. They say that the legs, unfortunately, are the things that go early in dancers. But if you last past 35, I guess you're doing well, right?
Well, yes. And nowadays, somehow, everything is much more scientific, and they do a lot of things to condition their bodies and keep their health and diets and that. So dancers that are really good are really careful about what they do because they want to prolong their careers, you know. And I'm working now with José Manuel Carreño, who's a big star with American Ballet Theatre. He's already in his early 40s, but he dances, 6 or 7 performances a week, you know.
Sure.
And he's retiring from American Ballet Theatre at the end of this season. He's going to be guesting all over the world and doing our festival here in Sarasota. So, you know, very active. A lot of young people like him are very active still.
I know Baryshnikov, he's been down here the last couple of years with an arts festival. I guess he still performs, and he's in his 50s, so I guess he's still going pretty well.
Well, he's in his 70s.
Is he really? Baryshnikov?
Yes.
Wow, I thought he was younger than that.
No. I mean, he can perform more as a theater dance actor, but of course his technique and that is not there because at that age it's impossible.
Yeah. You talk about the Royal Ballet, Robert. Is that kind of like for actors in England to go to the Shakespeare kind of thing, the Royal Actors Theatre? Is it the same kind of thing for ballet?
Yes, it is. There's the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art for the actors, and the Royal Academy of Dance, and the Royal Ballet School for dancers. And it's very, very serious. And the good thing in England is that people are totally dedicated to the arts. I mean, when you think that when I was directing the Northern Ballet Theatre in England, we did 220 performances a year, can you imagine? Which is quite amazing all over the country. And there is the audience. There's a great love for dance in many different styles of dance. So that's quite remarkable, actually.
Yeah, it's almost like the Broadway schedule. Not quite as many, but I mean that's a lot for dance.
Yes, and particularly if you're touring because you change cities every week.
Yeah.
You know? So we were just constantly in the car traveling from one place to the other. We hardly ever got home. We'd have sort of a few hours on Sunday if we were nearby, you know.
Want to talk a little bit about your book, Robert? You published it, was it last fall, called Destiny's Waltz?
Destiny's Waltz, in Step with Giants, yes.
And how's that been going for? I know you're probably doing some interviews and promoting that as well,
Yes,
but that's your life story, isn't it?
It's my life story. I mean, people encouraged me to do it because I lived in Iran for 11 years, and that was a very particular experience, you know, quite amazing. And of course, with the political situation with Iran and the Middle East now, somehow it allows people to have a glimpse of what life was like under the Shah, because a lot of people condemn him as a despotic dictator, whereas he really wasn't at all. You know, but politics use these different tactics because they want to gain other advantages, if you like, you know. But it was amazing, and so that's how I started writing those episodes, and then, you know, friends that read them said, well, why don't you write more about your childhood and your experiences in South America and how you began? And so in the end, it became like a complete memoir. So it's been very well accepted, and every time I talk to people, which I do fairly often, at groups and societies and yacht clubs and stuff around the area, I mean, they seem to accept it well, and you know, I'm really happy with the way it's going. I've been asked now to write another one only on Iran, because that is something that I think I can analyze, you know, with a bit more insight than people that haven't lived there, you know. So that's what I'm committed to now, together with the Carreño Dance Festival, which is also a great thing, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about working in Iran. Many people think that would be a hotbed for the arts, but obviously when the Shah was there, I remember that time. It was a different country at that point before it all kind of blew up. But was that I guess it must have been enjoyable. You were there, 13 years, right?
I was there 11 years.
11 years, yeah.
And we went back just before the revolution, but it was amazing because, you know, both he and the Empress were educated in Europe, so she's a graduate architect from La Sorbonne in Paris, and he was educated in Switzerland and at St. Cyr military academies, and so very international people. And I remember dancing at the Royal Opera House in London, and the Shah was on a state visit, and we all met him on stage. We had to be very ceremonial and that. And I never thought at that time that I'd end up, directing the ballet in Tehran, and then being asked by the Shah and the Empress to found the National Folklore Society and to do research into all their mystic ceremonies and tribal art and that. So it was fantastic, because I would go out 3-4 weeks at a time with my team and live with the tribes isolated in the mountains and film everything and write down and design all their clothes and artifacts. It was quite amazing, actually.
Wow. Now, were you there?
That went into...
I was going to say, were you there in '79 when all that kind of
I
happened?
left just before, I left in '78,
Okay.
because already I saw very serious things going on,
Right.
And even when I was here on tour with the Iranian company, the Mahali Dancers of Iran, which we toured the world with, and we came to America for the bicentennial as official, cultural ambassadors, and we performed for President Ford and all of that. And then one day in California, I came out on stage, as I always did, to announce the performance, and it erupted into a revolution in the theater, and somebody jumped on stage and gave me a karate blow across the face, and started screaming death to the Shah, and it was pandemonium.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. That started my worrying about what was going to happen. But fortunately, the FBI was aware that something might happen, and so they quickly took control, and the people were subdued. But it was really unusual,
That's when you knew you had to
Quite an experience.
get to the airport quickly and get out.
Well, we still performed the next day, and
Did you?
it was fine. Yeah, we did. And then on the way back, I stopped in London, and then my director from the Royal Ballet said, "Robert, really, you can't go on living there, even though you like it. There's something going to happen." So they offered me this position in London to develop that provincial company I was talking about. And that's how it changed. So it took me a year to get out, and, and then it did happen, of course, which was very sad from our point of view, because, Tehran was a great center for art. There were many international film festivals,
Right.
and all sorts of things. I mean, one day I had Rudolf Nureyev and Margot Fontaine and Yehud Menuhin on stage playing the violin.
Oh, violin,
and
sure.
They were, and they were dancing the slow Swan Lake Adagio from the Act 2. And so, where could you have those personalities all at once,
You show people are tough.
Yeah, I know. It was quite amazing. Yeah.
Well, just quickly go over some of the other places, and again, all these great stories are in Robert's book called Destiny's Waltz. But you mentioned working in Milan with La Scala. Of course, that's such a great cultural center, not only for opera but ballet as well. How long were you there?
I was 7 years in Milan.
7 years, yeah, a great place
Yes,
to be.
It was great, actually. It was Nureyev who suggested I go there. And we worked very closely for many years with Rudolph, and we're very good friends, and he's with us, with my wife and I, Jacqueline. He was just so different than he was with other people, and I think simply that we all understood each other. We never had the tantrums that he was famous for, He was always very good with us, and he suggested to the general director, "You must get Robert DeWarren. He's very disciplined, and it'll make a success." And so I was 7 years there. It was terrific.
And also you worked in Moscow for a while. That's a cultural shock for you, I guess, a little bit, right?
We went on tour. Yeah, we went on tour with the whole opera and the ballet and the symphony from La Scala to Milan to Bolshoi in Moscow, and we were there I think it was 8 weeks. And it was wonderful because I even had some of my choreography premiered on the Bolshoi stage, and it was just incredible to see that city. But of course, it was still under Gorbachev's presidency, and so life was very tough for them there. But I've never been back since the revolution or the counter-revolution. But I have been to St. Petersburg and to the Kirov Ballet and theater, which is really quite amazing also.
Is the Bolshoi, is that still considered one of the top companies, I guess, if that's the right word? Or
yes, absolutely. The Bolshoi and the St. Petersburg Ballet, the Royal Ballet, the Paris Opera, and then American Ballet Theatre, New York City Ballet, I would have thought were the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah. And the people over in those, well, obviously New York we know, but I mean in Moscow, I mean they make that. That's like their Broadway, I guess, isn't it? I mean they go to the ballet.
It is so popular. I mean, Moscow is Russia is very. They love dance, you know, of every kind. So they have every form of possible company to perform dances, like the Moiseev dance company, which does their folklore, and of course the Bolshoi. And in Moscow alone, there are 3 other very big other ballet companies, and as there are in St. Petersburg. So Russians love music and dance. It's part of their blood.
Just kind of reading a little bit about you, Robert. You had a chance to work with Agnes de Mille at one point. That must have been, of course, she well known here for choreographing Oklahoma, the show. But if she was, of course, that kind of changed Broadway, didn't it?
Well, it did. It did. I think both she was the first, and then of course Jerome Robbins came from the classical ballet into the Broadway shows, and they changed the whole world of Broadway shows and musicals and that. And Agnes de Mille was a fantastic lady. Interesting, because I talked to her on the phone often from Milan. We were planning things, and so I came over to New York to meet her, and she was, of course, quite old at that time, but she was very opinionated about certain things, and it was such fun, you know, because these people are eccentric characters, but they have so much knowledge and experience. So one's like a sort of, you know, kid drinking up the knowledge or whatever.
I guess they say she was the first, especially in Oklahoma, and I guess previously the dance numbers were great, nothing wrong with them, but they really didn't have anything to do with the story, and she kind of choreographed in Oklahoma where the dance was part of the story. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah. That's correct, yes. I mean, in Oklahoma, it's a masterpiece because the actual dances represent the story, and when you see, you know, all the young people dancing together, it's really exciting because it has meaning, you know, it's like later on in West Side Story, the same happens.
Right. Yeah, it actually become, I guess, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. There'll be another one that probably similar to that.
Exactly.
But it really revolutionized, rather than just doing a tap dance, which is fine, but that kind of made I think it just changed the way Broadway was presented since then. So that's great.
Well, you know, it's changed dance altogether because through the years it all followed that trend, and now if you look at these TV live shows like So You Think You Can Dance, and all these kids which come from really the street, you know, doing most amazing dances. And I'm fascinated by that. I mean, I'm going to put together, as soon as I can get it organized, a performance in our area to show these young people, because I think a lot of people haven't followed that whole process and development of the new dance that's going to give our profession an extra life and an extra push, you know.
That'd be great, yeah. A lot of great, obviously, talent down here, as you've found out,
absolutely.
Just being here for a relatively small city, Robert. It's amazing, isn't it, that the talent that comes here.
Absolutely, it really is, yeah. Well, that's why I decided to come here. I thought this is going to be the Monte Carlo of USA.
Yeah, that's true. Just have to get some casinos now.
Well, that's it. I think we're just waiting to see which governor is going to, you know, fall into that trap, if you like. But I mean, it does make a lot of money, doesn't it?
I mean, as long as it's, well regulated, there's nothing wrong with that. But we'll see.
No, of course.
I just want to ask you one more thing before we wrap up. I just kind of again seeing some of the pictures on your site. You worked with Elke Sommer. I always thought she was kind of one of the hottest actresses. That must have been fun. And was that a movie, Robert?
Pardon?
Was that a movie you were in with her?
Yes, that's right. Jean Negulescu was doing a film in Tehran. I think it was called The Heroes.
The Heroes.
And Elke was the heroine, and Henry Fonda's son, I can't remember his name.
Peter Fonda.
Peter Fonda, that's right. He was the star, and there was another guy as well. And it was all about smuggling jewels and opium and things in the Far East. But they wanted Elke to do a sort of Persian dance in a caravanserai. And so my boss, the Minister of Art, said, well, Mrs. DeWarren, I've got something new for you. And so he sent me over to the Hilton Hotel to meet Elke and to talk about teaching her some Persian dancing. I don't know if you read that episode in the book.
No, I didn't get to see
really
that.
Funny because I arrived and I knocked on the door and the door opened and here was this 6'2" man, athletic in a tiny little bikini, opening the door, and I thought I was going to see Elke. And he said, "Oh, I'm Joe Hyams. I'm Elke's husband. She'll be with us in a minute. Come in, And so we sat down, and lo and behold, a few minutes later, Elke comes in, and she was only also in the bottom of a bikini,
Ah.
So you can imagine my eyes popped out. Thank God I was sitting down because I would have been very embarrassed if I was standing up. But we became very good friends, and she's the daughter of a German minister, church minister, and
All
it
right.
was very funny because she was just so amusing. And so we did the film, and in the end it wasn't a Persian dance. They really wanted a belly dance, which is Arab. And so, then Negulesco said, oh, I don't want her to film her close-up of her belly because she doesn't wiggle enough. And Elke was furious because they were using a real belly dance, a close-up of her navel.
Oh, the body double.
The body devil, yeah, the stand-in. And so it was really fun. But we became good friends, and for years we were in touch, and she visited Iran several times.
That's a great story. I just saw the picture that I wanted to ask you about her because she was popular here in obviously in television in the U.S. for many years. But all these stories, Robert, in your book Destiny's Waltz and Step with Giants. I guess folks can get it. The best place on your website, Robert, or where can people get the book?
Yes, they can get it on the website for Destiny'sWaltz.com, or Amazon has it, and it probably is the easiest because also they give a discount.
Sure.
On my website I can sign copies, and I'm happy to do it. And it's I do a special price for them, but the easiest is probably to do it with Amazon, or actually at Barnes and Nobles they have it as well. The big stores will have it, or if not, they'll get it for anybody.
And your website is robertdewarren.org. Is that?
Yes, that's my website.
DeWarren.
Yeah.
That's DeWarren and .org, and check that out.
.org.
Well, Robert, it's a pleasure to have a chance to spend a few minutes. I've seen you around town, obviously, and I think you were in a radio station, a previous station, once or twice with a mutual friend, Cliff, doing an interview, but I never had a chance to talk to you directly. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's very kind of you, and I really enjoyed talking with you, too. I think it's fun to remember things and, share